All right, calling to order the regular meeting of the Ojai Parks and Recreation Commission at 6:01 on April 1st, 2021. Vicki, can you take roll call, please?
Did you ask for roll call? I'm sorry, it cut out.
No problem. Yes, roll call, please.
Chair Jacobson?
Present.
Vice Chair Taylor?
Present.
Commissioner Firestone?
Here.
And then Commissioner Entner is excused and Youth Commissioner Duenas is excused.
All right, moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ryan, would you like to lead us?
Good. Can we get the flag showing, please?
Yeah.
So, okay. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to number 3. Vicki, do we have any public comments that you know?
We have no public comments this time.
Okay. I just lost my list here. There we go. No public comments, but we do have a police report for section 4.
We do. I got this from Chief Rivera, and he says at Libby Park during the month of March, deputies responded to Libby Park for a total of 10 calls of service. Calls are related to suspicious subjects, several juvenile problems, a fight, and a suicidal subject. They conducted numerous foot patrols during the day and evening shifts. The biggest issues were juveniles climbing up on the roof of Libby Bowl. They had 4 such calls for service during the month of March. They beefed up the foot patrols, and on 3/19, the deputies contacted a total of 10 juveniles on the roof, and they were each identified, and then the group was counseled about climbing on the roof. At the skate park, a report of someone breaking into a coin box at the skate park. The cause was estimated at $500 in damage. No other incidents at the parks.
Is that all we have for that? Okay. Well, all in all, not so bad. Number 5, Public Works report.
So for Public Works, this is from Greg Grant, and we have an update on the multi-use, the futsal court schedule. So we're going to try to secure the state grant funding for the spring of 2021. And then depending on the city's cash reserve ability, they'll bid the project in August to September of 2021. And then depending on the cash reserve availability, they'll construct from October to December 2021. And they also are talking about the skate park vandalism. 2 Fridays ago, they broke the coin box. The lights are still working in the meantime, and they had them automatically shut off at 10 p.m. And it'll cost approximately $500 to repair. And the sound mitigation measures should be completed by April 1st. I didn't hear if they did finish them or not yet. At Lower Libby, the restroom toilet paper was lit on fire again on 3/31. So March 31st, around 5:30 p.m. The crew will repair it. Miguel and the fire department responded. They have a better camera view this time, so hopefully they can identify the children. And then Miguel added to that because it was a second fire of the same place, they're sending a arson investigator, and they'll be doing a report on it. And then their routine care will be the crew sanitizing playgrounds and restrooms for COVID precaution, and the picnic areas are still closed as a COVID precaution.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving on to number 6, Councilmember Wyrick. Thank you for joining us today.
Sure, and I'll say a couple things overall. I may have some other things to say on agenda items, if that would be all right. First of all, yeah, orange tier, possibly, looking like very, very likely at 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday, which opens up all kinds of possibilities, especially in Park and Rec, in terms of additional participation. We have already seen at the pickleball court increasing number of visitors hearing about it and seeking to participate. In other words, the proportion of participation by other than residents is increasing, which I find fairly interesting. Also, the number of young people is increasing. I would like to report with respect to prospects for doing our projects. I heard it looks like March might be our first month since the pandemic began of positive cash flow. So it would be very good if knock on wood, maybe we've seen the biggest stress on our liquidity and we're going to start having some positive cash flow again, which would be very nice to not be digging the hole again deeper. I have asked, in light of just a lot of issues, I have asked, and I think we're soon going to get an answer from county, what is the total amount that they collect at Sewell Park on the other side of San Antonio Creek, to see if we could work out, at least discuss a possibility of opening up by a bit more, as our liquidity improves, possibly indemnifying the county to say, look, we'll give you we'll guarantee a certain amount of whatever that number is, if you let us, take down the admission fee and start running programs over there. We might, we're going to find out what the number is, but I have made that request because there are, it's such an underutilized resource, and we've been thinking about this for a long time. So anyway, I'll leave it at that for now.
Great. I know that in the past, I think our feelers have gone out regarding that, and the county has indicated they're mostly in the hole in that place anyway. So I hope that they're open to the idea.
Right. And we could just guarantee them, because we know the degree to which that whole admission situation reduces the usage of that facility.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for the updates. Moving on to number 7, consent items. Have we had a chance to look at the March 4th Parks and Rec minutes?
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from the March 4th meeting.
I'll second.
Great. So moving. All right, then, moving on to number 8. Making quick work.
We have to vote.
That
We have to vote on that.
I can barely hear you. Kind of muffled.
Oh, after the motion is made, we need to vote on it.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, yeah, we have roll call vote. Due to COVID and video meetings, every vote has to be a roll call vote. So Vicky, can you call roll, please?
And Chair Jacobson,
Approved. Aye.
Vice Chair Taylor,
Aye.
and Commissioner Firestone.
Aye.
All right, so approved. All right, moving on to number 8, presentations, action, and discussion items. I believe you have some stuff for us, Vicky.
The first up is grant opportunities, and it's our recommendation that the commission consider whether to form an ad hoc grant investigation committee.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. Thank you, Vicky. We have a brief, we had a brief kind of memo in your packet, but we are starting to, as Councilmember Wyrick mentioned, we've had our first positive finance month in over 6 months, or actually longer than that. But our first positive finance month, so that's a positive. I think everybody's aware that we moved to red tier, and then next week it looks like we're going to move to orange tier, and there's rumors about how quickly we may move to yellow tier from there that seem to be pretty positive. So there's a lot of positive things happening, but the realization that we have is that we still are going to have to staff up for the next 2 to 3 months to start rebuilding kind of the team. We had a couple of retirements during COVID and a couple of other situations where we are very short-handed for the time being. And we are not only going to have to do that, but we realize the other kind of rumor that's been going around, and it seems to finally be happening, is that there are going to be several grant opportunities as part of the whole federal and state recoveries. And so people probably heard, but this week, what we had all been waiting for was President Biden to announce, this $1 trillion infrastructure program as an example. And we've also heard that the state and federal are also going to put more money into recreation and parks type grants. So with all of these factors, we were realizing we're going to have to try to really investigate grant options a lot more closely than in years past. It's almost, it's mandatory this year and not optional. If we're going to want to do things, we're going to need to obtain some grants. But we also are realizing that we have one staff person in recreation at this moment. We are planning to staff up over the next couple of weeks. We're working on that as we speak. But we don't really have, then it's going to be, we're going to have to bring those people in, and we're going to have to train them and get them up to speed. And we aren't going to have a lot of time to do this, grant investigation. So with that, I was asking that the commission consider whether the commission would be willing to form an ad hoc committee that would investigate grants and then come back and make a recommendation on which to actually pursue. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, I guess we should vet and see if there's any interest from our current commissioners.
And if I could add one more thing, James, and that is the fact that we've now executed the long-term lease extension with the skate park opens up all kinds of eligibility for grants focused on that facility as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I meant to mention that, and I put them in reverse order on the agenda, but yeah, we did do the 20+ year extension. And the reason we were doing that was to open up for grant eligibility. So we finally, that has been approved and executed.
Okay. I don't know if that requires a vote as far as interest goes. I know we can't form one tonight, but as far as interest goes, as long as there's commissioners available, I say why not?
I have a question about like a lot of government entities belong to or provide certain memberships for grant opportunity platforms. Does the city have any access to those types of platforms?
We do. Mostly for us, the focus over the last couple of years has been public works related grants. And the one for recreation that we've applied for every year that we get notified and everything on is I mix up some of the programs, but I believe the recreation one is the Prop 68 grants that we apply for. And that is actually the grant that we have right now on the futsal courts. I think it's a $200,000 grant that we've obtained, and we're waiting for that funding to come in. And so as far as recreation goes, we know and we are notified, and we every year apply for the Prop 68 type grants, but we don't have anything more substantial than that for recreation grants at this time.
So what type of, if they're not recreation grants, are you asking for assistance with public works grants then? Would we have access?
No, I'm asking for assistance with recreation grants. What I was saying is that we don't have any access right now, or any staff person who is part of any recreation grant list, any recreation grant mailing list.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So
I just was saying, not necessarily a mailing list, but usually there's software that helps find the actual grants. And they're usually memberships that the city would pay to belong to.
yeah, we don't currently.
Okay.
But those are the kinds of things, if a recommendation would come back to say, join this group, because that's the place to be. That's something that would be helpful.
Sounds like you know a lot more about it than we do. Susan.
No, there's no implied knowledge, just asking a question. Thanks though. Maybe when does the commitment need to be made for the ad hoc? Are they looking for a commitment tonight, or since Sage is not here to provide input, can we table it till we have a chance to discuss?
We could table it. And what we could do is on the next agenda, we can write it as, since it sounds like the commission's at least willing to consider it, we can actually have a recommendation to form it at the next meeting. But if you choose, you don't have to take that. If you choose not to do it, you can choose not to do it. But we can agendize it for the next meeting to form.
I think that's.
I'll just say, I think it's a great idea. It's nice to hear staff and the council reaching out to us and asking for help with something, and it sounds like a pretty productive thing to do. So I'd be happy to be involved in it.
Awesome.
And I think until we have a subcommittee, I guess formally we can't meet, but I'd be happy to help in the meantime if there are things I can look into.
Okay.
Awesome.
If we can send out feelers to all the commission members, including the two that aren't here today, and then come up with a vote next meeting for the agenda.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Section B, skate park update.
And that the skate park update ties in a lot with what we just talked about. As we mentioned, is one of the goals with trying to get the skate park lease extended was to get it extended long enough that we'd qualify for some of these large grants, because there's been a lot of talk of ways we can upgrade or expand the skate park, but to this point funding hasn't been identified to do that. So the first part of the update was just the part we already gave, which is that we've extended for 20 years, which is good news. And actually it's 23 years because it hadn't expired yet. So it's extended through 2044. And then the other part of the skate park discussion was, if you recall, we had received public comments last meeting from a member of the community who had some suggestions for the skate park. And so last meeting, the commission was interested in kind of discussing those further. I will note quickly before I hand it over that the shade at the skate park, I reviewed our CIP that we're going to bring to city council. Well, actually, let me take it back. We're going to bring the park CIP projects to the next Park and Rec Commission meeting. And then a couple of weeks after that, it'll go to city council. And on that CIP list right now, we do have a recommendation for a shade structure at the skate park, which can be done relatively cheaply. And within the realistic budget expectations for next year. So the shade structure was one of the items, but there were several other items that are included as attachment A that I think the commission wanted to discuss. So with that, I'll turn it over to the commission. All right, Council. Sorry.
Yeah, Chair Jacobson, I had a couple other things.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is the Arts Commission had the public art at the skate park on their agenda, having to do with the fact that there's some deterioration and needs to be repaired and taken care of better. So they're stepping up and addressing that aspect of the skate park, the public art component, which is a pretty major piece of public art in Ojai. And the other thing is that the city is sensitive to, I think I can say that overall, the city is sensitive. Maybe James will correct me, to the matter of doing the proper planning and permitting for the proposed farmers market idea in the evening, in terms of making sure the planning is consistent and coordinated with the skate park usage. So you may be asked for some input once we actually get a plan and an application from the school district for that permitting.
Great. Thank you for considering all those avenues. All right, anything else?
Sorry, what is the farmer's market proposal?
It's an evening additional community market, farmers market, is what little I know about it. And obviously, as it warms up, the early evening is a peak use time for the skate park. So we've, I don't want to speak for James, but I certainly expressed my opinion that the city needs to really request a proper plan and do a proper permitting of that activity.
And if you haven't heard some of just a couple of the details, it would be proposed to be Thursday nights. So it's a little different, and it would be held at the Chaparral site. And
In the inner U area, in other words, you know, in the L-shaped or U area, in the interior U area. So they probably would be coming in and out at the Fox Street gate.
so
Right,
that's how it ties into the skate park discussion.
yeah.
Great. Anything else on the skate park?
As far as the kind of opportunities, is there any opportunity for more space being leased in adjacent to the skate park? Is that part of?
Well, actually, James, can I speak to that?
Sure.
The lease includes a per space compensation to the school district. They would allow the expansion of parking spaces, you know, into the existing gated area. That's included in the new lease. I would imagine they would be open to other approaches, but that specifically is in the skate park lease. I don't know, James, if you wanted to add to that.
No, that's in there. And then I'll just tell you from when we discussed the skate park lease with the school district, they were open to a potential expansion, but what we had talked about a few ways to expand actually, and one was the potential of expanding the skate park, or the other was adding parking, and then the third was actually utilizing the kind of U-shaped cutout that is on what is it, Aliso and is that Matiwaha? But on
the little U pave area.
Yeah, so we had talked about all those, and we included in the lease some language basically saying, like, we wanted to get the lease done, like, you know, and just get it done. But we included language saying that we were going to be open to discussing, both parties agreed to be open to discussing further expansions in good faith, you know, and so I think that that's a possibility for us. The funding's the challenge, which also ties into why we were saying, let's start looking at grants, because I think that there would be some possibility there if we can solve that problem.
Anything further on that?
No, that's our report on it.
Okay, moving on to section C, pickleball courts.
Pickleball?
Or James?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're James, whoever's got something for it.
I'll give it a shot. I've been pretty involved in the pickleball courts. So at our last, I think it was the last commission meeting, the commission requested an update on the pickleball courts because we had a couple of things going on. We had mentioned at the time that we were working on some sound mitigation, and we had talked about that the city had agreed to set some specific hours. So the intention of this item is to give that report and then see if there's any feedback from the commission. Vicki, did we end up getting any pictures of the wall that just got installed?
No.
Okay. We'll send, I meant to get them, and we just, you know, we've been crazy, but I'll send a picture out today. We literally are finishing it. The plan was to finish it today. So it's finishing as we speak, but we installed, if you'd been out here a few months back, we put up a 12-foot panel of what's called Acoustafence. And I think that everybody had seen that. I think we talked about that at a prior meeting. And so what we ended up agreeing to do, you know, it reduced the decibel level by about 10 decibels. But the appearance wasn't what we were hoping for. So what we agreed to do was actually build a 6-foot rock wall and it's called a gabion rock wall, which is the cage with the rocks inside of it. So it's 6 feet of that, which is also good for sound, and it just looks better than the floppy Acoustafence. And then on top of that, we're installing and installing smooth and flat or flush 6 feet of Acoustafence on top of that. So it's still 12 feet, but it just looks a lot better and matches the surroundings better. And then in addition to that, along Ventura Street on the existing, there's a 3-foot stucco wall there currently. We're installing 3 feet of Acoustafence to just try to help with sound going across the street. So those are both installed, like they're being finalized here. So we'll send pictures of that out to the commission as soon as it's done. It should be today or this week at the latest. And then the other thing we're doing is just along the fencing to the south side, we're installing some additional plants and shrubbery to help kind of mitigate the noise as well. So the two things that the city agreed to do to try to help address any concerns by any of the neighbors was do all that sound mitigation. And then secondly, we agreed to modified hours. And so that's the sign. We have temporary signs up now, but we had included the sign that we were preparing to start producing. And it's attachment A, and it notes that the pickleball court hours for winter, which is October, we've classified as October through March, are 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. With the idea being it's right next to the Children's Memorial Garden and the demonstration garden, and a couple other things, and the neighbors. So the idea would be to have some hours in the morning that are quiet, some hours in the afternoon that are quiet, and some hours in the evening that are quiet. And then summer, we changed the hours just slightly to try to stay further from the heat. So summer, which we've classified as April through September on the signage, says 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. So we had worked out those hours. We met with the ambassador for the pickleball group. We met with the neighbors that had concerns, and everybody had agreed to those. So we ended up accepting those. But you may have heard is recently we had some requests from the pickleball group to expand those hours further. But at this time, we haven't discussed that as either the city council or at the staff level. So at this point, those are the hours as of this time. So those two items were the key items that we wanted to update. Other than that, I think if you've been by, the courts are full. Every minute that they're available, they're full. Which I know, the question at some point is going to be, where can we find more courts? And I think that's part of what we were looking at with some of the other ideas that Councilmember Wyrick mentioned earlier. But they're full, and I would call it a success at this point. I know there's been a lot of controversy around them, but it's a pretty successful program for not a whole lot of cost or effort. So.
All right. Can we keep that on the agenda for future updates then, I guess?
Yeah, do you want to have it like on like every other meeting or something like that until?
Well, it should be on the next meeting, considering you will have pictures to share, right?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that'll work. We'll do that.
Anybody else have anything to add regarding pickleball? Okay. Moving on to recreation report. That's a Vicky thing, right?
I have an update on just what's going on at the rec center right now. We still have our 4 main fitness rentals, the Kung Fu, 2 yogas, and the Taekwondo that are constantly using the field spaces for their programming. And then today I just got an email like 20 minutes before this. We have another yoga instructor that would like to add in a Sunday class. And so we'll start processing her and get her added to our list. And then our regular outdoor programming for adult strength and Aikido is going on. And we just starting a new dance class that's going to go from April 12th through May 31st. And it's already full with the wait list. So she's thinking of opening another one of those. And then the gymnastics program that's outdoors, we have 89 kids that participate per week as groups of 4-to-1 ratio. It's a really nice program, and that's going every afternoon, well, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday afternoons here at the park. It's getting hot, so the mats are hot. So we have to think where the shade areas are to be able to get that a little better. And then next week, we're going to offer a surf camp for spring break. We have 4 kids enrolled right now, and they just meet at Solomar Beach. It's a really good program. We ran it last summer, and it's really well ran for the social distancing, and the ratio is really small, so it's really good. And then we have our Tai Chi, the Ventura Fusion, and our youth tennis programs are also going really well. The youth tennis has 50 enrolled right now, ready for their programming, and we're getting ready to start him up a new session mid-April and see if we can figure out how to get him 1 or 2 more available classes out there during the court time he has. And that's everything we have on our programming right now.
Great. Yeah, more dance. Tried to sign up for that for my girls, and they were just full before we even got a hold of it.
Yes, which is not normal. Last time we did it, she didn't fill it up and almost considered dropping it, but then they enrolled like right at that first day. And so this one, she said, well, I can fit 8 instead of 6 this time. So we did 8, and it was seriously full within a like 4-day span. So it's just, we haven't ran it since I think it was probably last October or something. So people are waiting for it.
Great. Any questions?
Yes, James, is county health gonna, you think, have any guidelines on the use of outdoor picnic areas when they, with the orange tier?
Outdoor picnic areas. I think that they're just classifying that similar to are just under the park guidelines. I think that the outdoor picnic areas, I'll double check, but I think that those are open just like playgrounds and outdoor recreation.
Right, so I noticed that we still have them closed, but that could possibly be opened up as well.
Yeah, that is something we should look at, and that's, I would say that if anybody on the commission sees anything that that should start opening up now that we're going red and yellow so quickly, we started to realize, we reached out to things like the farmers market and had them open up their capacity. We just did that today, but there are a lot of things that are changing very quickly. So if you see something, shoot Vicky or me an email, and we'll look into it. But like the picnic space, my understanding is that can reopen now, so we'll double check that and then
At least for single households.
Yeah. Well, and it's I think that would be the rule that it would be subject to, would be the gatherings rule, which is limited to 3 households still.
Right. I would think demand for that might be pretty strong.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
We are using the larger picnic area for the Taekwondo class from 2:30 to 6:30 every Monday through Friday right now.
We can reserve it for the class times. There's an idea.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah.
In the smaller areas, he said he'd prefer them on the grass right now, so we could put the tables back there and use those also.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on to section 10, commissioner reports, subsection A, public pool ad hoc committee. James, do you want to expand upon your conversation with the school district, and I can go from there?
Sure. Yeah. So I had the school district has, as part of their bond, had talked about potentially opening or building and developing a public pool, or I've even heard some comment that it would be an aquatic center. And so they had reached out to us a couple months back and asked if the city would at all be interested in programming, and so we're talking pretty long term. I imagine it's going to be a couple years away, but they were asking, would the city be interested in either using it for programming or partnering on programming or providing programming that the district could use. And so, we had said that, it depends on exactly what we're talking about, but that it would be worth exploring. And so with that, I think, was it a couple weeks back that I found out last minute that they were going to have one of their first kind of meetings on it. And we were invited to have somebody from the city participate. And so I reached out to Chair Jacobson and asked him if he would be interested as the member of the public pool ad hoc committee to attend that meeting. So I haven't heard anything, so I don't know if it was successful, but that's kind of where we're at with, or where we were at with it. So.
Yeah, it was It went well. There's quite a few people on that little committee that they formed. Representatives from the school district programs, YMCA representative, some other folk from the community, some that have been on previous community pool committees, spanning back 20 years. So there's a lot of information that needed to go through, and essentially, though, it's really early in the preliminary stage of things, and they just basically wanted to do a higher level overview of where everybody wanted a community pool in cooperation with the school district to go. So everybody had their say, and of course I threw my 2 cents in regard to the pool committee, our meetings with Carpinteria School District and their cooperation with the city, as well as our meetings with others and our information gathering. So it was very early. Programming is still going to be a little distance away. They're looking at potentially getting a community pool up and running within the next 2 to 3 years. So that's built, complete, programming ready to start. So it'll be a while. I was invited back, so it'll be a monthly thing. So dissolving the ad hoc committee is probably not a good idea, considering that I suppose it can be an extension of city participation through the Parks and Recreation Commission. As far as I got on that. Any questions? Yeah, right.
Question. Is it, so it, I mean, is your sense that the school district is intent on developing a pool that is used for the community as well as the school district, and it's just a question of what that looks like, or is it still a question of?
That's the impression that I got. Yeah, that's the impression that I got. The Measure K bond was fronted as being a community pool, and that Dr. Morse made it clear that they would like to have it a community pool because that's what they promised the community, not just a school district pool, but a pool for everyone. So we went over real minor details on how other people do it. Like, for example, the Carpinteria visit that the previous members that are no longer with us that were in on that. We discussed it with Carpinteria and how they had separate locker rooms for the students and entry points for the students versus private, and how they worked with the city and private entities in cooperation and programming. So, and what facilities they wanted and needed, and what they've improved over the years since they started it. So I was able to give some input in that regard. But yeah, they made it clear that they would like it to be a community pool in cooperation, mostly with programming from YMCA, but also through the city and Parks and Rec. So they're open to the idea. I grabbed that olive branch as quickly as it was extended. So I'm happy to work with them. And
oh, great.
we only have myself on this ad hoc committee, and so we have another opening now that our previous commissioner who was on it is no longer with us. So I believe we have that open position, so it would, if somebody wanted to volunteer, we can't vote for it tonight, but they can add themselves and jump in on the meeting in my place or an I in their place. Throwing that out there. That's all I've got. If anybody has any other questions. Okay. Move on to, so the recommendation on that, by the way, that the Public Pool Ad Hoc Committee provide an update and discuss next steps. Next step discussed last time was to possibly dissolve. Let's take that off the table. I think the next step would be to continue participation and possibly add another member. So moving on to number 11, future agenda items. Dog park. We didn't really discuss much last. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's clear. I mean, I don't know that we even have any surplus land set aside. I know that it's even hard for Public Works to get their equipment staged at their locations. Yes, Councilman Warwick.
Well, I think that was a motivation for me, among other things, to ask for what the county collects and whether, because we have a dog park, but no one wants to use it because they have to pay to get in. And the dog park's not being taken care of very well by the county. And, you know, it's again, an example of something very underutilized And if we might be able to really just basically ask them if we could run their dog park, and we guarantee a certain amount of admission fees, you know, assuming our liquidity improves. But we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We already have one. If the county could get straightened out in terms of letting the city do a more effective job of running it and taking care of it. I just thought I'd want to point that out.
But that's a good idea. We've spoken with Public Works with Greg in the past regarding even staging equipment there. If it's there and you have a cruise there and you can take care of the facilities a little easier and better, I suppose, than the county did or has in the past. So it's a win for everybody in my eyes, at least. But yeah, it's definitely worth exploring.
I think the chemistry might be changing with the county, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that's why, I'll just add, that's why we listed it as the future agenda item, because so I reached out to the county on like what that could look like at Sewell Park. You know, what it could look like as far as some sort of deal where we could talk about the city maybe paying a fee and then, you know, being able to utilize it for programming. So we put it on future because we didn't get an answer yet. We got a response that they would look into it and get back to us, but we didn't get a real answer yet. So when we do get that answer, we'll make sure, you know, we'll come back and talk about it in the context of the dog park and a couple of the other ideas.
Yeah, there's a lot of logistics to think about for sure. I mean, letter of indemnity would release them somewhat of liability, but put some liability on us. And where does that start and end in something like a dog park where, you know, there's a little bit higher liability? Sure, you can explore that a little further, James, your background.
For sure.
Okay, that's all I've got on that, unless anybody else has any other questions.
Can I note under future agenda items for the next meeting? So we're going to put pickleball on for the next one, just as an update with the photos. And then the other thing that I mentioned earlier, I just want to make sure to say it. So we'll do the CIP, the parks related CIP, capital improvement projects on the next agenda, so that then we can take the whole CIP forward to council following that.
Great, good idea. Ryan, you had some?
I had a question. We're short a commissioner. Is there a plan to fill that position? Is that happening?
Yes, the appointment process, we modified it. The city council modified the process. We're now, I think we talked about this maybe 2 months ago, but the council members now make rotating appointments. So we have reached out to start the appointments because we had done the advertisements and everything. And I know that there have been a couple of appointments made. Now the next step is they make the appointments and then we bring it back to council on the agenda and then it gets approved by the full council. So we're planning to at least bring the ones that have been made so far to one of the April meetings. The only thing I don't remember off the top of my head, I don't remember if somebody's appointed for parks yet. So I'll follow up on that. There's a lot of vacancies, or there's not a lot of vacancies, but there were a lot of appointments that the terms ended. So even those have to go through the reappointment process. So there's like 20 appointments that we're working through right now.
Okay, yeah, because as things open up and there's kind of more to discuss and be active on, it certainly would be nice to have another.
Yeah, we'll try to. We're gonna bring some in April. I'll try to push to see if we can get recreation in there.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Unless anybody has anything else to add for future agenda items or any other questions, we can adjourn. Next meeting will be on May 6th.
Oh, sorry. I have one question for staff. I had a few inquiries on the softball activity at Sarazati Park. Do we have any information that we can share about when that type of play might be available?
I don't think we have a firm date yet. I don't think we were doing the summer camps this week, but Vicky, I don't think we've looked at softball yet.
Not yet. We would have to bring a staff back to maintain the fields and then hire the refs and things like that and go through all that.
Yeah, so for the next 2 weeks, we're planning to get a couple people in place in recreation. So by the
Okay.
next meeting, we can plan to have an update on softball too.
Okay, that'd be great if we could put, even if we could place that on agenda or under just staff updates is fine. Either way, I just want to
For
be able
sure.
to get back to the people.
For sure.
Okay,
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you.
All right, anything else? Okay, that adjourns us. Next meeting is on May 6th, and we are adjourned at 6:46 p.m.
Thank you.